Hello and welcome. Please fasten your seatbelts and set your phones to airplane mode. Today on the Flightline, the Bell P-39 Airacobra. My name's Jacob and I'll be your captain as we take a look at Bell's not-so-beautiful baby. The P-39 first flew on April 6th of 1938 and entered service in 1941 after a slightly tumultuous development, in which the turbocharger in the prototype was removed, something that would haunt the aircraft in service. The Airacobra is 30 feet 2 inches long and sports a wingspan of 34 feet even. Its gross weight is 7,570 pounds, and it's powered by an Allison V17109 V12 producing 1,200 horsepower. Its maximum speed is 389 miles per hour, and she has a range of 525 miles, with a service ceiling of 35,000 feet, though you couldn't pay me enough to fly one that high without the turbocharger. For armament, the P-39 boasts 4 Browning M2 50 caliber machine guns and a devastating nose-mounted 37mm cannon, though there were only 30 rounds of cannon ammunition. It could also carry up to 500 pounds of bombs on the belly or wing mounts. Around 50 variants of the Airacobra were developed, though the vast majority of these saw only minor improvements to survivability, the airframe, and armament. Notably, however, the British and Soviet export variants were modified from the US standard design. The Royal Air Force saw fit to replace the 2 wing-mounted 50 cal machine guns with 4 308 machine guns, and the 37mm cannon with a 20mm Hispano. The Red Air Force would choose to omit the wing machine guns entirely, leaving only the 250s in the nose and the 37mm cannon. This gave the Soviet Airacobras an improved roll rate, with reduced weight and angular momentum. Later, the Airacobra would be developed to be carrier-operable, with the Arabonita, and finally, it would give birth to its own successor, the P-63 King Cobra. The P-63 was an Airacobra that had been improved in almost every way, proving far superior to the Airacobra at high altitude especially. During the Second World War, the Airacobra saw extensive service among the Allies. British and American pilots tended to greatly dislike the aircraft, citing instability and poor performance at high altitude, immortalized in the limerick, "Don't give me a P-39, the engine is mounted behind. She'll tumble and roll and dig a big hole, don't give me a P-39. RAF test crews described the airplane as utterly useless above 20,000 feet. Despite this, it was reasonably effective in RAF service for engagements below 15,000 feet. The U.S. Army saw a roughly 1-to-1 victory rate with the Airacobra in the Pacific Theater, and the aircraft was phased out as quickly as possible in favor of the P-51 and the P-40. Only one American pilot was able to become an ace in the Airacobra alone. In service with the Red Air Force, however, the Airacobra shined. Soviet pilots took a quick liking to the plane, and used it to significantly greater effect than any other ally. Having procured the aircraft through Lend-Lease, the Soviets took to the skies on the Eastern Front armed with Bell's plane, and made light work of the Germans they encountered. It's commonly cited that Red Air Force pilots used the plane largely for CAS, but this is a misconception. The error comes from the Soviet description of the plane's role, coverage of ground forces, or ground cover. While in the West we would use this to describe CAS, the Soviets use it to mean interception of enemy aircraft, which may be attacking Soviet ground forces. In practice, the Airacobra was used by the Soviets almost exclusively in an air-to-air role, owing partially to the simple fact that they were not given armor-piercing ammunition for the 37mm cannon under Lend-Lease, and only had high-explosive ammo, which was most effective against soft air targets. Soviet pilots appreciated the cannon's devastating effect, but felt it lacking in rate of fire and ammo capacity. The cannon would stay, and the Soviet pilots loved the plane regardless of its flaws. In fact, they preferred it to the Supermarine Spitfire of RAF fame, which they also received under Lend-Lease. 5 of the 10 highest-scoring Soviet aces of the war earned their titles in Airacobras, with Grigory Rychkalov earning 44 air kills in the P-39. The Airacobra served with the Red Air Force until 1949, and then until 1950 with the Italians and Portuguese when the last P-39 saw their way out of service. Today, a few airworthy examples still exist in the United States, and, if you're lucky, you might catch one flying at an airshow. I hope you enjoyed this episode of On the Flightline. If you did, consider liking, subscribing, and hitting the notification bell. Thanks for watching, and remember, you can always go around.